The caveman principle is an excellent argument to explain why the theater is not dying and never will. Sometimes over a few too many beers at the bar, I get into a conversation, a tiresome conversation, with another theater type who pisses and moans that the theater is dying. The theater is dying! Now, I'm a theater type. I create theater. And I don't think theater is as relevant as it might have been at another point in history. I do not agree that the theater is dying. My would-be conversational partners would then become armchair futurists. They would explain how the radio and then cinema supplanted theater, and then of course now with the internet, with all of its glorious attributes, well, that can't be stopped. It's going to swallow up the theater whole. And that soon, theater, live performance in front of a live audience, will be something that can only be seen in museums. And this is about the point in the conversation at the bar where I point out that the internet is just another thing. It's just another media. As glorious as it is, it's just something else for us human beings to make room for. In fact, putting theater and the internet in the same category is not really a wise thing to do at all. It's like apples and oranges. They're not in the same category. Of course, the internet has changed the media landscape, sure. As big media conglomerates ponder over how to make revenue from the internet, as well as us small YouTubers, the internet is not close to wiping out television, radio, cinema. Oh sure, when a new media comes along, all the other kinds of mediums have to adapt. I mean, television is not going to be the same kind of television as we know it now. But it doesn't mean that those things disappear. With that being said, theater's not going to disappear. It's not dying. To back this up at the bar, I usually bring out the argument made by Michio Kaku in his wonderful book, Physics of the Future. He calls it the caveman theory. Michio Kaku points out that human beings really have changed very little in the last 100,000 years. Those old school human beings looked a lot like us contemporary human beings. In fact, Michio Kaku points out that if you took a caveman from back in the day and gave them a shave and put them in a new suit and washed them up really nice and then put them on the street, nobody would know the difference. Our features are the same, our looks are the same. And what's more important, Michio Kaku points out, is our emotions are the same. We have the same desires, the same needs as our ancient ancestors. And this is where Michio Kaku's caveman principle comes into play. No matter what new media emerges, we still revert back to our caveman desires. Michio Kaku points out that our forebears always demanded proof of kill. It's never enough just to brag about the one that got away. It's much more preferable when the caveman will go out on the hunt and then bring back, after the hunt, to the campfire, the story of the hunt. It was much better always to have the freshly killed animal in his hands, rather than telling a big whopper of how the mastodon or whatever got away. You see, we as human beings want a hard copy. We want physical evidence. Kaku points out this is why the paperless office never picked up. Despite all the wonderful things about technology, we human beings inherently don't trust all the electrons and stuff in the computer. We want the actual paper backup. Even if we have it digitally backed up, we also want a paper backup. Kaku goes on to point out that our ancestors were really in favor of face-to-face encounters. You want to see your friends and your enemies. You want to look them in the eyes. You want to read their body language. This is the reason Kaku points out that cyber-tourism never took off. It's one thing to look at a picture of a famous portrait, or say the ceiling in the Sistine Chapel. And it's another thing to say you were there, that you stood in that place. You were there when it happened. In a similar way, It's one thing to listen to your favorite singer on a CD or download a song. Sure, that's good, and we're going to always want that. But it's much more preferable to see your favorite singer in concert. It's a different feeling, to feel that rush, that vibe of being in the crowd when that singer sings before a live audience. It's the reason we still want autographs of our favorite stars. Sure, we'd like to see them in movies, but to see them in real life, well, that's another thing altogether. We don't put down one to get another. It's not either or, it's and. We prefer both. To quote Michio Kaku exactly, he writes, "The caveman principle explains why the prediction that the internet would wipe out TV and radio never came to pass. When the movies and radio first came in, people bewailed the death of live theater. When TV came in, people predicted the demise of movies and radio. And we are now living in a mix of all these media. The lesson is that one media never ever annihilates a previous one, but coexists with it. It is the mix and relationship among these media that constantly change." You see, our ancestors always wanted to experience and observe phenomenon firsthand, right in front of them. They didn't want to depend on hearsay or gossip. Kaku is fairly certain that far into the future, we human beings will still think the same. We'll still want actual physical evidence. We'll still want to see our celebrities live in person. We'll still want to see live theater. It's not to say we're not going to want those other things too. We'll just make more room for it. Whatever comes up after the internet, we'll just make more room for it. We'll make limitless room for the things that we like. So, Michio Kaku, thank you. Your caveman principle in your book, The Physics of the Future, is an excellent argument to why the theater is not dying. We as human beings are always going to want to choose a first-hand experience. It's ingrained in us. It's hardwired into us. Sure, we're going to want everything else too, but just as preferences go, we'll take a live experience anytime. And to you, my friend at the bar, you're cut off. You need to drink some water. Do you need a ride home? Maybe we can call you a cab. Thanks for listening. Hey, this is Histrionic Kablooie. I'm Brad McIntyre. On this, I'm going to talk about the theater quite a bit. Different kinds of aspects of the theater, history of the theater, theory of the theater. I like theater. I do solo performance. I'm a playwright. I'm a director. I run a small theater company. Anyway, if you like theater too, feel free to subscribe. There's links down below in the description, and I appreciate your support. Thanks.